You may know them for their wood glues, but did you know Titebond also has a complete selection of construction adhesives? Designed for a variety of applications, Titebond's adhesives make any building or home improvement project a breeze with their high-performing and durable formulas. These adhesives are trusted by the professional, providing squeak-free subfloor installations, long-lasting retaining walls, and even fastener-free feature walls. Check out Titebond's construction adhesives at titebond.com, including their newest award-winning adhesive, Tight Grab Plus. Welcome to this special edition of the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, recorded live in partnership with the BS and Beer Show at the 2025 International Builder Show in Las Vegas. My sincere thanks to the panelists for our fun and interesting conversation in the construction performance zone, and to our live audience for their participation and great questions. Thanks for listening.
It is a delight to be here. Thanks for having us here.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah. I guess we'll take some questions later, but let's start off by saying what you all are doing here, what you're hoping to learn at the Builder Show, why you come, first time or many times. Why don't we just go down the line and introduce yourself, Randy, and tell everyone what you hope to find at the Builder Show.
My name is Randy Williams. I'm from northern Minnesota, climate zone 7. I'm about 100 miles south of the Canadian border. I'm very fortunate to now be the Green Building Advisor editor. Thanks to Fine Homebuilding for the opportunity. I am a cold climate builder. I am now I'm still an energy auditor. I do building investigations. This is my 8th trip, I think, to IBS, if I'm counting right. And when I come here, I'm always looking for performance stuff that'll, something different or something new, something that'll help us build better. I found a few products today. The one that I thought was kind of the neatest was, and it's not new, it's been around for a little bit, but the shredded blue jean insulation, which I hadn't seen for a while. It kind of disappeared. Another company has purchased. Are we allowed to say the company?
Sure.
Okay. So it's Henry, who bought the shredded blue jean manufacturing facility and is now putting out a R13 available at Home Depot, of all places.
And it could make your insulating almost comfortable instead of a horrible experience.
You could, as a matter of fact, they told us that same product is used to manufacture mattresses for prisons. No.
Is that good?
I don't know.
Emily, how about you?
That's why we all eat lobster now, right? They used to feed it to the prisoners. I'm Emily Mottram. I'm an architect in Maine, co-host of the BS and Beer Show. So I would say the reason I come here is our motto is to spread BS and have fun while doing it. So one of the things I love to do at the show is connect with other people, connect people I know with people they should know, or vice versa. So I think that's the best part about coming to IBS, is getting to see all of the people that are here. But as far as products, and like Randy, I also have spent my fair share doing energy audits and diagnostic testing. We were actually just over at the RetroTech booth. Those of you who know me have probably already heard me say everybody should have a blower door and an infrared camera. Apparently now you all need the new smoke pen also, because that is one of the coolest things. I am a tech geek nerd. I like all of the techie things, so that's always fun for me to come to the show and see what's new in technology, especially as we get feedback from the people that are here or from those of us who are working in the industry that says, like, hey, we need this thing, or we need this thing to do something else. So that's who I am and what I do here.
How about you, Travis?
So I'm Travis Brungart. I run Catalyst Construction with Joe Cook there on the far end. We're builders in Kansas City, high performance builders. We have the unique privilege, and I do consider it a real privilege, to get to come to these shows, actually to teach and share what we've been taught by other industry greats, what we've learned in the pages of Fine Homebuilding over the years and read at Green Building Advisor, and what Carl Seville has whispered in my ear as I'm going to sleep. That's why I have nightmares. I don't sleep much these days. But the real benefit for me to come and work on this construction performance zone with Ben and Joe, to get to share what what we think can make the industry better for all of us and to create a better built environment. That's what I'm here for. That's the great privilege that I get to enjoy. And then the second thing that I'm here for, Patrick, is to get you a beer. I'll drink it. So I guess I get 2 beers.
Very good. I'm Patrick McComb. I'm a senior editor for Fine Homebuilding Magazine. I'm Patrick McComb. I'm a senior editor for Fine Homebuilding Magazine. Was it working? Patrick McComb, senior editor, Fine Homebuilding Magazine. It is a great privilege to be up on this stage with these very nerdy and interesting people. And thank you all for having me here. I came to the show first in 2002, I believe, and have made it to almost everyone by this point. And it's still fun and interesting, and you meet amazing people. And it is quite a privilege, I think, to talk to the folks who make this stuff and who can help you do a better job at the difficult industry of construction. So thanks.
I'm Ben Bogey. I'm a high-performance builder in Western Connecticut and Eastern New York. I have the weird distinction of being third generation in that my father and grandfather were doing this starting back in the 1970s. Right now, I am a principal at a company that does zero energy ready for a baseline on all of our projects. So it's zero energy ready or better. I do quite a bit of education throughout the industry and writing, and I am continually humbled, like Travis was saying, to have the opportunity to have a platform to get up here and put people that I respect and read and learn from on these stages to help share with you. And something I want to share is that we learn as much or more than you do in the process of putting this together. Because I know Travis, Joe, and I all consider this a great honor to be able to share. So before we do these things, we are feverishly educating ourselves to make sure that we are sharing good information with you. So I want to thank all of you for coming because it helps all of us to educate ourselves.
I'm Matt Blomquist. I'm a building trades instructor in Taylorville, Illinois at Taylorville High School, which is a public high school. My students build a high-performance house from foundation to trim. I have had the pleasure of becoming friends with not only the group up here, but many sitting out here. For me, this trip is, I become the student. I do get to do some teaching, which is more fun because you guys clap for me. My students do it. I think they're mocking me when they do it, but yeah. So it's nice to be applauded whenever I say something. So that's always, not that you have to applause right now. Yeah. It's not a prompt. I'll just have the applause sign. But for me, this trip is always a lot about networking. We have something special that SASHCO does with building trades teachers on Wednesday night and stuff. And each year we've gotten more and more trade teachers out here. So this is a great opportunity to not only for me to meet them, but bring them into my world that I've gotten to be with these people and in high performance and learn to see what's going on around the country and kind of help push forward the trades education and just grow our network and also keep working with the companies that are doing so much to support our programs and other programs around the country. So this trip is always a fun one, busy one, but it's definitely a relationship building one and continuing to build relationships trip for me. So thank you guys.
Hi, I'm Joe Cook. I'm a high-performance builder out of Kansas City with partners Travis. And just to kind of echo Ben and Travis, it is a true honor to be a part of these stages, to get up on stage, talk about the products, educate you, educate myself in the process, and just to be a part of giving back.
Should we ask folks if they have any questions? Is that a good thing to do? Does anyone want to ask a question?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to take this back a little bit because I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with BS and beer. Can we get a show of hands for people that are familiar with BS and beer? Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with BS and beer, there used to be a group of people in Portland, Maine, and we have the actual one of the founders standing in the back there, Steve
Hey,
Cosentino. So a bunch of builders were starting to look at high performance building. This was what, 15 years ago, something like that ish. And they were in community, and they're saying, hey, we're all trying to do this thing together. So why don't we all get together and talk about what we're running into and see if we can't help each other? So they started getting together at Steve's business on a regular basis and talking BS and drinking beer. It was called the Building Science Discussion Group. This went on for a number of years. It was part of that I actually relocated my family to Portland, Maine, was to be a part of this community. And then when COVID hit, we were no longer able to get together and have these conversations. So we started getting together on Zoom, those of us in Maine, and meeting once a week because we were locked up and had nothing better to do, so we wanted to talk BS. Then all of a sudden, these weird people like from Kansas City and southern Canada started logging in, and we're like, well, where are all these weirdos coming from? And what started to happen is it started to be a groundswell, and people started to come and join into the conversation. It was great. And then we got Fine Homebuilding and Green Building Advisors said, hey, you guys are doing something that's pretty cool. Let us help you. They helped us put this community together for a number of years, and this has now grown into the Building Science Symposiums that Travis and Joe started in Kansas City, and now we do 6 cities a year nationally, going around to try and share. And all of these efforts, I want you all to understand, these are all not for profit. Every penny other than our direct cost gets passed through to trades education. We've done what? In the last 3 years, about $140,000 worth of donations to trades organizations. So I just wanted to share a little bit about this. You can all start a group in your own area.
And you should.
You go to the bsandbeershow.com, and there's information there and recordings. You can find it on YouTube. And I encourage you to start this in your community so that you can all work together.
Yeah, show of hands. How many people have a local group in their area? Yeah, these are our people.
Yeah.
We'll call them out because there's a bunch of organizers here. I see a lot of BS and Beer Canada.
Do we have any organizers, any BS and Beer group organizers?
So BS and Beer
raise your
Atlanta.
hands. Look around you and find them.
Denver.
These are people that you think you live near. Yeah.
Where you at, sir? Washington.
Seattle. BS and Beer Seattle.
Yep.
Connor, you gonna just sit silently?
BS and Beer
Where?
Canada.
Canada's
That's
big.
all of Canada.
All of Canada.
He says Toronto.
Toronto.
Oh, I can't say that correctly.
Toronto.
And then Justin's over there. There's other BS and Beer Canada. We got Canada represented hard.
That's true.
Justin's there. Seattle. Excuse me. Salt Lake City.
Salt Lake City.
Where? Oh, sorry.
He's just gonna yell.
I'm trying to ruin my voice, Andres. Come on now.
Yeah.
No, it's just it is really great to see so many organizers. Austin from Salt Lake City. See, I got it right the third time. Third time's a charm. We're really proud to be part of that movement, but it is something that I feel like we often get credit for, and it's not appropriate that we get credit for it because it's really a credit to all of you.
Amen.
It's a really simple thing to start this. It's just about getting a few people together and having a conversation about how to better our industry. Crafting a better built environment is not a steep lift when you have good people to lead you, and that's what all these people have generously done for so long. What Steve did by opening up the back of his shop a long time ago, and Dan and Mike spreading that joy, I really think has changed my career and to a large extent my life. So I hope that all of you who haven't already had the chance to join a group or enjoy a meeting at least, will consider trying to find one because it's changed the way that we do business, I would say. Joe, do you agree?
I was going to ask Joe, you guys came to, let's say, high performance building because you saw a market need, and I'm guessing it's helped your business or at least changed it. Do you want to talk about what that's done?
Yeah, I would say it all began with the Fine Homebuilding Summit. And not to give Ben any more credit, it was one of his presentations, building your wall assembly, that it kind of, Travis and I are sitting there watching it, and we're like, for one, I don't even know about half these products. And then two, I haven't even seen an assembly like this. So that's kind of, and then seeing Steve and seeing Christine Williams, and just being exposed to so many people and then getting to talk to him, Michael Maines. It just opened the door and just and opened my mind more or less to, okay, we can do better. And then Travis and I had this harebrained idea of like, well, maybe we can do a miniature version in Kansas City.
What do you all think is we've seen black windows become a trend in the industry, right? And design circles. What have you seen at the show that you think is going to be the next thing that's on a lot of houses? Anyone have thoughts on that?
Air to water heat pumps.
Yeah.
Air to water heat pumps, air to water heat pumps, air to water heat pumps.
Why?
Okay, so the reason for this, for air to water heat pumps, is we're looking at electrification of our homes now, right? So if we do air to water heat pumps, water is the easiest thing for us to store energy in. It's the universal storage medium for energy. You can heat it up, you can cool it off. To store a comparable amount of energy in a battery is so expensive. So expensive. So what we can do is we can put an air to water heat pump on a building. We can put PV on top of that building. And during the day, when that PV is producing a ton of energy, but we don't have a lot of heat load on the house, we can store that energy in a tank full of water. Then at night, when the PV is not producing any power, but the house needs energy in the form of BTUs, we can suck it out of the tank and deliver it to the house. Now we're solving one of the difficult parts of electrification, which is where we're going to be putting higher impact on the grid at the most susceptible times of the day and relying on peaker plants, which are the dirtiest forms of energy production, to supplement and most expensive. I just learned something today. So like a utility company might pay 7 cents a kilowatt hour to a nuclear plant for electricity. If they have to buy a kilowatt hour from a peaker plant, it's like $1 per kilowatt hour.
At least.
So that drives up the cost tremendously. So the grid has an incentive to help us push these things forward, because now we're going to be lowering the peak load and they're going to be able to glean better profits off of it. So,
Anyone else got a thing they saw that's... Don't you see? Are you worried it's not as good, Randy?
No, I don't have anything negative. I can't compete with that.
I haven't seen the show. I've been working here. I will say, I was really impressed with the panelized systems that we got this year. I know that nobody came for a commercial, but all of this is made possible by the sponsors you see on that screen. One of them being SBCA, if Sean Shields is around. Ben worked really closely with Sean on the set design, and getting these components delivered saved us, I don't know, a day and a half of build time at least. So while that's not new technology, it is something that I think often gets forgotten, especially by guys like, goodness, that was tough, Joe and Matt and myself, that frequently self-perform framing tasks. It's a really good reminder how quickly you can move your project along with these panelized systems and the different efficiencies that you can gain and planning for all these different things. It's not a crazy new tech, but frankly, for me, it's an important reminder. We don't have to do things the hard way. We don't have to do all the heavy lifting. We can do things a little easier and a little faster, and sometimes even a little better when things are on a factory floor instead of up a ladder when it's blowing wind and it's -6.
I think it's interesting that you found the same time savings and labor savings that a builder would in a set design or execution versus, that's pretty cool. Anyone else have thoughts on cool things or technologies they've seen at the show? I've been seeing ginormous windows and doors, patio doors that must have been 14 feet tall. Are you all putting these things in your projects?
Patrick, you know what those are for, though, right?
Well, it's not for my house because my ceilings wouldn't be that tall.
So that you can let all of the conditioned air of your house
Out at once.
one shot.
Oh my gosh, they are impressive though. And if you lived in California or someplace with a mild climate, who wouldn't want to have those huge connections to the outdoors?
I think it's fun that you talked about climate specifics, because I think there are some people who are really talking about climate specifics in their booths, and there are some who are not. And I think those big windows and doors, do we put some of them in our projects in Maine? Yes. Should we? Maybe not.
Not
You
everything's
can't.
about performance.
Yeah, you can't fault someone for wanting to look at a beautiful view or the beach or the ocean, right?
Yes, a beautiful view, the ocean, that faces north on the wrong side of the house. I mean, that's always like, you can't help it. The lot they pick that they want to build on. We have a lot of ocean. And the joke in architecture is if it doesn't look good, put some more windows in it, add some more glazing. So.
You have something to say?
So I did give a brief shout out to aesthetic, because even though we are the BS and Beer show and we do really value building performance above all things, one of the most important aspects of what we do is making something that someone will care about and take care of. So if it isn't visually pleasing, if it isn't a place that you want to be because there's great natural light inside, if you can't enjoy entertaining guests or host your family at holidays, then maybe it's not a place that you want to stay, and maybe you don't take care of it. So that does lead back into durability, and that's something that I think is the whole goal of building science. So I think that matters. And as a builder, I don't get to have as much say in that as my friends on the design side who really get to push the aesthetic. So I love those big badass doors from Anderson. I'm all about it. I want to put in another one. I don't see that we're ever going to get away from fighting that battle of, okay, we added this really cool thing that looks really sexy, but you're going to be super uncomfortable if we don't do X, Y, and Z. And that's the value in this, is understanding where you can move those sliders. How can I pick up and fix what we broke when we added this awesome aesthetic? How can we solve for budget when we add all this cool stuff? Because frankly, most of the things that we want to do cost money, and yeah, they're all worth it though, right?
Worth it. I don't know. I'm not going to weigh in on whether or not they're worth it. But Joe Stiebrick made a comment, because we were talking about this a while ago at a presentation. And he's like, we need to remember that buildings need to be beautiful, because when buildings are beautiful, we care about them. And when we care about them, we take care of them. And when we take care of them, they last, because there's nothing worse than building something, not taking care of it, and having to replace it after 40 years. That just seems foolish to me. So let's build things that perform well, are well crafted so that they're given a chance to survive, and let's try and make them beautiful so that people care about their experiences with them.
I would add too, good buildings make people happy and enjoy life, but more so than crappy buildings. Who would argue?
Very true.
One of the other things I noticed is it seems like there used to be a conversation, at least when I started earlier in this publishing career of mine. In northern climates, you had HRVs, and in cooling climates, you had ERVs. And I think it's now officially everything is ERVs. You guys out there are nodding. Do you want to tell me why you think that is? Do you have an opinion? Anyone? Yeah, yeah.
Gordon Cook.
He said, Gordon Cook said that at construction instruction, for those of you who couldn't hear what he said. And I think there's a lot to that on ERVs, and we're going to talk about ERVs on Thursday, just to plug for people to come back. We see it in our cold climate it is so dry. It's dry here. I don't think you can manufacture any moisture, but we have some moisture inside. It's so dry, it gets nosebleed dry without having that extra moisture in it. So we for certain have all moved to all ERVs. So.
Did you have something, Robbie? Shout it out.
Yeah, we want to be capturing that energy in the form of moisture. We want it, or we want to reject it. And then ERV is going to do that for us. When I got into really personally becoming fascinated with high performance building, I had this romantic idea. This was early passive house in the US, that we were going to build this incredible envelope, and then we were going to put a single high wall unit somewhere in the house, and the house was going to be magically comfortable everywhere, because the juju of passive house was so strong, and I drank the Kool-Aid. Years and years later, and watching my business partner, who lived in the first certified passive house in Connecticut, he's now on his third HVAC system, because he had that same idealist, romantic view of what it could be. And we're learning. We're learning that doesn't work. And we're learning that we can't get these tiny little hyper-efficient systems. We need to be adding all sorts of controls in. So for us right now, we're doing dedicated dehumidification on all of our projects, because one of the things that happens in a high performance envelope is we're stretching out the shoulder seasons. in those shoulder seasons, our systems aren't running and they're not removing moisture. So we end up with uncomfortable interior environments, and we end up cranking up the air conditioning to feel comfortable when what we're trying to do is dehumidify. Like we were touching on with ERVs a moment ago, during the winter time, if we don't have enough latent generation inside of the house, because of the fact that the ERV doesn't capture all of the moisture, we watch the relative humidity in the house ratchet down to the point where it's uncomfortable. So now we're like, oh my God, the woodwork looks like shit and everybody's nose is bleeding. What do? Now we have to add humidification. And then it's like we're doing MERV 16 filters on everything. So I think the point of me sharing this is that we can't just be romantic and think there's going to be one solution to throw at these things that's going to solve everything. We have to look at these holistically, and we have to put these controls in place and these systems in place so that we can have this level of comfort in these buildings. The beauty of it is that if you build a high performance envelope, the systems can be really small. They just have to exist.
All right, so I'm going to play devil's advocate, going back to Patrick's question about ERV and HRV. What instances would we not want to use an ERV? I can think of 3.
If you have a house with a high humidity load from a wet basement or something.
This is something like that, or let's say an indoor attached swimming pool.
Yeah.
I suggested that a house that was already wet from a wet basement or some other atmospheric condition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you've got a high humidity load to begin with, the ERVs or HRVs are going to dry the house out a little bit, right? They're going to help. A grow facility, if you're growing something.
Are you all building grow facilities for your clients? I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, there might be somebody that has one.
Consulting.
Yeah. Greenhouses.
Well, I get paid in products. So.
And then, of course, the indoor swimming pool. If you got an attached indoor swimming pool, you really need to manage the humidity in that facility.
Can I take on that one?
Yep.
All right, so we just recently had an experience where we got to build a certified passive house with an attached indoor swimming pool. And the best approach that we could come up with is to treat it as a totally separate enclosure. All right. And then the other thing that we do is we put an ERV into that area and we operate that area at a negative pressure. So anytime that you open the door between the house and the swimming pool, it's pulling all of that moisture away from the house. If you're going to put pools inside of houses, be very, very careful. If you're going to put pools inside of houses in a cold climate, be very, 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 very careful, because things can go sideways on you really quickly.
This gives me pause, and I think this is a good opportunity to remind everyone that while we can put almost anything that we want to in our house, it's great to be an American. We have all this freedom. Not everything goes in your house. I always park my car in the garage outside of the house, which is actually a lie because my truck's too big to fit in my tiny garage. But the idea of putting things in your house that don't necessarily belong in the house, things that would negatively impact your indoor air quality, for example, not just in terms of humidity, but something that might off gas, or say the exhaust of the truck in the garage, all those things are, I think, a little misguided. Like, I love basketball. It's my favorite sport. It was my first love. It's unfortunate that I wasn't good at basketball. That was a one-sided love affair. But nevertheless, many, many times I've thought about my dream house, and never have I thought, I'm going to put in an indoor basketball court. And it's not because
Clearly didn't have enough money.
to be clear, Patrick is emphasizing the fact that I do not have enough money, which is accurate. But so that we're clear, also, that's a massive condition volume that I'm going to use, especially, I'm 47 now. I'm not balling every day. I'm not mixing in a pickup game on a Tuesday night. If I get to play once a year, I'm thrilled. So to put this giant condition volume in a house, put in all this awesome hardwood, great. It'd look cool. And if I was really wealthy, I'm sure I'd have to find some way to get rid of all that money. That's not ever going to be a problem for me. And so I would really like something that Sarah Susanka early championed, the idea of a smaller house, a responsible house, and something that Emily Mottram has carried on with a pretty good house. You and your fellow authors have done a great job of speaking to, yes, you can have a beautiful, efficient home that serves the occupants well for many generations, but it doesn't have to include 64 different glazing packages. It doesn't have to include all these massive energy loads. You can really enjoy life with a lot less and have it be even better because of that approach. Would you like to talk about some of that, Emily?
About the Pretty Good House specifically, or just about?
Say that.
I was
How to
gonna say-
convince your clients not to put in things that you
Not
think
everything.
they should.
Yes.
Okay, how to convince your clients not to put in everything you should. Well, my first thought would be going back to building science and everything that goes into Pretty Good House, which is a lot of education, right? People ask me all the time, how do I convince my clients to do anything? I don't convince them to do anything. I just give them a lot of education on what they want to do. And I actually think it was Steve Basic that said it, maybe on a podcast or somewhere, where he said, don't plan for one day of the year, plan for the other 364 days of the year. So we've had clients who are like, I need a double door so I can get the Christmas tree out after Christmas and not get pine needles everywhere. Like, that's a really, really bad reason to have a double front door. I shoved mine out the window this year, so I'm just saying, it's possible.
Wait till all the pine needles off. You don't have to worry about it.
Right, and then you vacuum them off the floor. But I would say that we don't really convince our clients to do anything. We talk them through. One of the other jokes in architecture is it's a little bit like marriage counseling. So we spend a lot of time talking them through each and every one of these things. Do you want to spend another $50,000 to $100,000 for a guest room that gets used twice a year? If you do the math on that $50,000 to $100,000, how many rooms at a hotel could you rent for your family to stay with you, not paying to heat it, to cool it, to clean it? Yeah. And so we do spend a lot of time talking about what's the wish list, what does everybody need, what's a need, what's a want, what's a wish list. And then how do you want to feel in your space? And it comes back to one, things being beautiful. People want things that are beautiful, but also technology. And I haven't been all over the show yet, but I'm sure there's some out there. We do a lot of 3D rendering now because our clients have a hard time understanding. And as part of that 3D rendering, there are a lot of software that will geolocate you to your exact location, and you can show what the sun pattern is going to be in their kitchen on that day at a particular time of the year. And that's something that's really huge for us, because most of our clients come to us and say, I don't want a dark house, because who's lived in a dark house? I like log cabins for about 3 weeks in the summertime, and that's about it. It's a terrible idea. It's super dark all the time. They're terrible heat sinks. But they're lots of fun in the summertime on the lake when you're in and out. So we don't really convince them. We just talk them through it, right? Let's talk through what's good. And one of the Pretty Good House tenets is to continue to make improvements until it no longer financially makes sense, because Travis may never have the budget for a basketball court, but most of our clients come to us with a budget. I mean, how many of you work with people that don't have budgets, right? They can have whatever they want. Yeah. See? Ben is going to...
It's not better. It's not better. It's not been worse.
But he's going to figure out all the technology for us, so it's going to have a trickle-down effect so that the rest of us can continue to use that in our spaces, because somebody has to start somewhere. But everybody else has a budget, and so Pretty Good House, and honestly, code is getting pretty good right now. And so when we first started talking about that at the building science discussion group, like 15-ish years ago, the code was pretty bad, and we wanted people to do better things. And now the code is getting pretty good, and so it's a lot more of understanding there are 16 ways to do it. How's the best way for you?
I'm glad you brought up changes in practice, right? Vapor control has a lot more nuance in the conversations recently because of less energy flows through assemblies because of increased insulation levels and our tighter homes generally. Are you all finding that the homes you build have vapor problems, or you're giving this more attention than you might have in the past? Is this something that we should be worrying about in only certain climates or everywhere? Go ahead, Ben.
So no, we're not experiencing any vapor problems in our assemblies. I have the nerdy pastime of burying sensors into building assemblies on our projects, because I read the things that the computer modeling tells me and I go, I'm not so sure that's right, because I've taken apart a lot of old buildings. So 7-8 years ago, I started monitoring buildings by burying sensors in them. And what I'm finding is that the things that the computer heat, air, mass movement calculation softwares tell us is often wrong. So these things that, like Woofy tells us will be vertical mulch are actually doing okay. So the point there is be very careful about trusting computer modeling software for moisture management. That being said, if you just follow the code prescriptive paths now for vapor control and ventilation in your buildings, you're gonna be doing pretty good. We had kind of an identity crisis a while ago when they rolled out the 2021 code, and we saw that roofs were now R60. We had been doing R60 roof for a decade, 2 decades, going, yeah, we're high performance. Now we're like, oh my God, the code's here. Is caught up. And we had to figure out, well, how do we push further? So the place that we're pushing further now is around embodied energy and materials and indoor environmental quality, health, material toxicities, all of those things that we're starting to become really aware of having a huge impact on our lives.
I want to add something that Ben said that it might not have been a clarification, which is you do have to read both the energy code and the IRC. So please don't forget to read the sections on vapor. That's something that we harp on all the time. We have people who come to us and say, well, this is what the prescriptive code said in the energy code. And I'm like, that's great. Now also go read sections 7 and 8 in the IRC and learn about vapor control as well, because it's really important. Yeah, they tell you conflicting information if you only read one or the other. And the reason some of that happens is because of different materials that we have available to you. If you've walked around IBS, you've seen about 6 billion different products that are here today, and how you use them makes a big, big difference. And I want to give a shout out to Robbie in the audience. He recorded a BS and Beer show with us in January of this year. Go check it out on the BS and Beer show. Both on our website or on our YouTube channel, really helping people understand what some of those things say. So shout out to Robbie.
I'm going to go back just a little bit to what we were talking about vapor retarders. Since I've been here, I've had 6 calls for houses that want to have a building investigation because they've had water dripping out of their ceiling. I've been here since Saturday. So I've had 6 phone calls in my climate.
Randy, has it been especially cold? Because folks here probably know that those conditions are often worst in the coldest weather. Or is there just coincidence that you're getting all these calls?
We were cold earlier, but this week we were back up in the 30s. And it isn't a vapor problem, it's an air leakage problem that they have. Of course, they're blaming the roof. The roof is leaking, but...
I recently had a friend who was like, we're going to work on a job and we're going to caulk the decorative ridge beam to stop the water from dripping into the great room. And I said, wait a second, what's going on there? He's like, well, a couple years ago, some other contractor sprayed the whole ceiling with open cell foam in a cold climate, and they have brown droplets of water coming from the ridge beam now.
Do you want to tell folks briefly what the mechanism?
Yeah, what's going on there is it's moisture movement going into a roof assembly, because open cell foam is vapor permeable. That moisture pushes through the foam. The roof deck is cold. It condenses, and it starts turning that roof deck into oatmeal. And then that water drips back down through, because in a cold climate, in order to use open cell foam or any permeable insulation, you have to vent that assembly or insulate it on the outside to keep that surface above the condensing temperature. And that is frequently not done.
So the other thing that's obviously been top of mind for the building community lately is fire resistance of structures, especially those that are in the wild urban lands interface. Have you all seen products today? I saw what was described as a fire-resistant sheathing product, which looked like it had some kind of intumescent coating. Is anyone familiar with these or have thoughts on? Yeah. Go ahead. We just want to be here. I thought you were going to talk about intumescent coatings. Thanks.
We're drinking.
Yeah. Well, so that one I've seen. So there's a lot of other cool products too. The one that I saw today that was really striking was, I believe it is a radiata pine siding and trim product that was pressure impregnated with an intumescent. So this is a natural wood-looking product that when it heats up, the surface of it bubbles with the intumescent and it becomes fire resistant. The other thing that I saw, and this one struck me particularly because I ran into this with a code official previously, is fire stops for rain screen assemblies. So previously there's only been kind of one option out there, but I've seen at least 2 more now, so that these are fire stops meshes, intumescent meshes that you can put into a rain screen assembly to stop the embers and firebrands from being able to move through those assemblies.
But they still move air.
They still move, freely until they get hot enough to trigger the intumescent, and then they close up.
Cool. I saw a ridge vent a couple years ago. Similarly, it seems to be getting in the marketplace now. Same problem, right? We don't want those things blowing in the roof. So what do you tell your students about coming here? Do they ask you why you come here and what you're supposed to be doing here? Is this benefiting them?
Yeah, no. I've been very intrigued listening to all this. So, my students always ask why they can't come to Vegas. I always tell them because they're not 18 and I don't want to get fired yet. So that's why even though I think getting students to shows like this, very beneficial. I think, like the JLCs and stuff where there's even more is really good ones as well. There's plenty of education happening. In fact, I think there is currently student competitions going on in the show here. I do not know where they're at, but
Tell folks what that is.
so I don't know a lot about the competition, but I think it's like a construction competition that there are student organizations here performing. It might be through Skills USA, which is a very big organization. If it's not, they are definitely a big organization to be involved in. It's one of those things I'm learning more about. Actually, this show, so I'm trying to find out more about it, so that way I just know myself. But yes, I always do get asked why I don't bring students, and well, you're bringing Vegas. Yeah, so the students, obviously, they understand what I'm out here doing. They understand that I've been helping build this. They see the posts I put on social media. They know what I'm working, like professionals I'm working with. Half of my class is Emily, as our house plan is from Emily this year, or this, yeah. And they know, even though they don't completely understand, because right now they only know one way of building, in high performance way right now, they do know that people have made enough clamor about them that they understand that they are doing something better. They just maybe not quite sure what that is yet. Now, once they start getting in and running a blower door test and looking for air leaks and things like that, then all this details that, we were showing about caulking and air sealing and all that good stuff starts to come together. And if anybody out here is getting really nervous and freaked out about high performance building, because everything they just said, just right over the head, it's actually really simple. High school kids can do it. If you don't know,
With
just
a good t-shirt.
thank you, Dan.
I say his high school kids did some better details than some of our contractors do. I just shout out to them. Some of their work is amazing.
Thank you. And what the jump onto that is not only this group up here, but people like Jake and Steve have made these details very simple, right? We've thanks to Connor and everybody and Travis doing the wall assembly contest we've done a few times. That was Orange Brown students. Those wall assemblies were getting very simplified. I don't know, I guess my suggestion is read Pretty Good House. First of all, that's going to simplify things. Fine Homebuilding. Yeah, yep. And reach out, I cannot spec out a HVAC system, right? By trade, I'm a carpenter, but we have people who, like Ty Newell, Allison Bales, who do spec out these things, and then we know then the students now know the equipment we're putting in, right? They may not be able to do, what would that be, a manual J calculation, but we can run the ductwork. They can seal the ductwork. They can insulate the ductwork. We are putting a CERV in, that hooks up to a dehumidifier, that hooks up to our ducted system, actually is part of it is the ERV as well. So it's one of those things where whether you're trying to do it yourself or you're trying to teach your crew and train your crew, It's very simple. It's at first it may not think that way, but if you're just thinking about air leakage, that's going to take care of 90% of your problems, right? Especially when it comes to getting into water vapor. So it's simplify it, keep it simple, follow what people have kind of put out there for us. And like I said, the high school kids do it. You guys can do it. Your newest member on the team can do it. Continuous beat a clock can be whatever shape you want it to be, as long as it's always touching. Like, it's very simple concepts. And I really appreciate what you guys have done for the industry and for me in making it simple. I remember doing the first house. Now it's nice having Jake and Steve back behind the scenes in my ear telling me right, wrong, or indifferent. But don't be afraid to do it. It's very simple, and break it down to be that simple, right?
I think what you've done there is just reinforce the value of having you at the show, Matt, because all the things that you're talking about, that you're teaching your students now, we're having the privilege of teaching on this stage. We got Ross Trethui over here talking through that manual, Jay, that you're talking about, how you can select that system, how you can choose the right low load appliance for this high performance home, and how to really share that information. So I always like to point out that I feel like we're in the golden age of information sharing, not just the golden age of information, but honestly, the generous sharing across our industry is the inverse of what we saw maybe a generation ago, where it was like, oh, I've got a really good tip. That's what sets me apart from my competitor. I'm keeping this to myself. I'll take this to my grave. This is how I'm going to make sure that I make my nut while the other guy can't make his. That's not what this is about now. That's what you're seeing with the BSMB. That's what you're seeing through Fine Homebuilding. That's what you're seeing across all of this work that we're doing on stage. It really is. And what's supported by all these sponsors. Every one of these people has, every one of these companies has an R&D department that they're dumping millions of dollars in to make our jobs easier every day. And if Matt can teach his students how to effectively pull a 3.32, I mean, you're super low on your air tightness.
Yeah, we didn't have window holes.
Okay, so
Cheating.
nevertheless, the amount of time that's invested to learn the lessons that are required to attain these details is never going to be lower. Well, maybe it'll be lower in the future, but it never has been lower than it is right now. That lift is so low, and people are giving so generously of their knowledge. I don't know, what does a GBA subscription cost, Randy? Like $50?
$150 per year.
$150 a year. And that's access to all the basics, old details. That's access to all the articles, all the forums that you've got people like Mike Maines and Randy in there moderating, making sure that good information is shared, that nobody is misled, that the question that you ask about your product, the question you ask about your project gets answered with factual information that is appropriate to your climate zone, appropriate to the task that you're trying to achieve. I'm just thrilled to be alive right now, to be in this industry right now, where if I really have a problem that I am afraid of, I can call Ben, I can call Randy.
And then I'll laugh at you.
Well,
and then
he's not going to answer anyway, which is why I call Randy. And then Randy will go, yeah, I wrote 6 articles about that dummy. Go ahead and pull up my blog. But I mean, if you look at what Patrick and Fine Homebuilding have been offering to us, and really how I found my way into doing a better job and pursuing mastery in my career, which is an endless task. The amount of information that is freely shared from person to person, from each of you to one another, to really advance our industry, it's amazing. It's a golden age.
I just want to throw a shout out also to our sponsors. The fact that these companies are willing to stand up here, some of them are direct competitors with one another, and get behind education speaks volumes about the character of these companies. That's saying to me that these companies actually care about making our industry better, and that's shown by the fact that they will put good money on the table along with their competitors to help push all of this forward. And they understand that we are going to be talking about things that might be better than their product or different than their product, or we may not be recommending their product all the time, and they're okay with that. And they're willing to pony up so that we can put this together. And this is not an inexpensive endeavor, and we wouldn't be able to do this without them.
Let's give them applause, please. That's a big deal.
And frankly, And frankly, credit to NAHB, who does a ton of education, not just here at the show. Yes, thank you, because I know that there have been different words thrown around about the levels of involvement and support, but frankly, it's a giant pool of money that they put into the hands of people who can help programs like Matt's, who offer different programs, classes, the bookstore out front, and that's what we're doing here. They approve this. I'm sitting on a stage with 6 of my friends drinking a beer and talking about building science. This is awesome, right? Like, let's lean into that greatness of this time. I know that Randy's super excited to be doing the job that you're about to undertake, or that you're undertaking now. I was going to ask you earlier, what do you think is the greatest opportunity that you face as the editor? Because to me, and Patrick has a lot of experience as an editor, so you guys could both speak to this, but one of the things that I've enjoyed as a reader for a very long time is how much you guys scrutinize the information that you share, because you understand the impact that you have on the industry.
You're asking a wrong question for me to begin with. Yeah. I'm an editor in training. The training wheels are still on for me. So
we all recognize that the work is very important. People's homes are, for most people, the source of their wealth. And more than that, it's the source of their safety and their comfort and their enjoyment of life. And so the work is very important. And I think nothing is sadder than when that bad home building leads to house failures, because it's such a waste and it's stupidly expensive. And if we can do a better job, that's what we should be doing. And I think everyone at the brand recognizes that. And boy, our motivation is to help it be easier for you all to do a good job. And
well said.
That's the important part, right?
Something I just want to throw out there, and I'm not going to throw shade, but we live in a world right now where we have all sorts of different streams of information flowing at us all the time. Something that I want to reinforce is that you are somewhat mindful about where you're pulling your information from, because organizations like magazines have a journalistic imperative to fact check and accurately represent the information that they are putting out. There are other sources of media all around us that don't have that journalistic imperative. The directive that they have is, how can we cash a check? So just be mindful of that. Some of these organizations out there are putting out great information, and then sometimes some really dubious information. So just be careful. Don't take everything at face value. Go ahead and research it for yourself, corroborate it, and see if it passes the sniff test. And support publications and groups that are doing good journalistic work.
What you said. Hey, do you all have any questions? You got some pretty smart people up here, myself excluded, but if you have questions, you've got good people to ask.
Itchy, scratchy building science questions.
I'd just like to make the joke. He asked that about an hour ago, and this is about how the BS and Beer Show goes. The chat box, it will be on fire, and we'll answer about one question before the show's over. So make it a good one.
So I'm in the PNW, Pacific Northwest. Back home, the current ambient humidity is about 83%. On all the topics you've been speaking to, is there a great resource that I can access in order to study, HRVs, ERVs, getting these high performance envelopes, and in my county specifically, we're in excess of the 2021 code, and so I'm really concerned about the 3Ms, moisture, mold, and mildew. So.
And with indoor air quality, or the house in general? Mold, what was your 3Ms? Moisture, mold, and mildew. Okay. Any advice from the expert panel up there?
Yeah, resources in the Pacific Northwest. I would first turn to Jake Carter, our BS and Beer affiliate in Seattle, Tacoma, Bremerton, to be exact. I would ask the gentleman who's building in your area if he has some resources, because I don't build there. So that's a good starting point. Obviously, I'm sure Green Building Advisor has addressed this from time to time. I'm sure didn't Rob Watsack do a fantastic job of making the entire catalog of Fine Homebuilding searchable? Can't we do that digitally
Oh,
now?
absolutely. Yeah.
So there's got to be some stuff there. Do you have ideas?
Yeah, the Building America Solutions Center, the DOE, buildingscience.com, JLC, Green Building Advisor, Fine Home Building. What's that? Ask Mike. Mike's a
The joke, because Mike's the only BS and Beer Show host who's not here tonight, is hashtag Ask Mike. He says hi to all of you. Bird's Mouth Design Build, also in the Portland area. I think they do a bunch of online stuff. He's here somewhere. I don't think he's in here, but
We got another question. I think that was an answer. Was that an answer? Okay.
All right, so our building enclosures are getting tighter, and we've got all kinds of mechanical systems. Every bathroom's got a fan, range hood, over the stove. We've got all these variable sources of negative pressure in a house. If we have an ARV for fresh air exchange, that is neutral pressure, right? In and out are equal. What have you guys been using, or what solutions have you seen to help mitigate the persistent negative pressures from those variable exhaust sources?
Joe and I actually just did a project that included makeup air systems from Fantech that were perfectly dialed in for that. But Ben's got another idea.
Yeah, makeup air. Makeup air is, for us, required. So you can deal with bathroom ventilation through your ERVs. That's one strategy if you design them properly. And commission them. All mechanical systems need to be designed properly and commissioned. That means you need to be going through and checking the flows that are coming out at each one of those sources to make sure that they're working properly. Ask an HVAC guy to commission his system, and his eyes will roll like the slot machine. And then you'll figure out how to do it on your own, okay? So ERVs and commissioning are important. We do makeup air on all of our projects, period. So the code currently says, is it 300 CFM is our threshold? 400 CFM is our threshold that we have to have makeup air if we have a range hood that is 400 CFM. To me, I think, pardon my language, that's bullshit, okay? So if we have something that is exhausting air from a building that is incredibly airtight, we have to have some means to bring fresh air in, okay? I'm pretty agnostic about how that fresh air comes in, but it has to come in. So one of the things that you can do is as simple as putting a rib relay on a fan hood or a pressure switch on a fan hood that goes to a motorized damper, like a zone damper. That's tied to outside, comes in through a filter. You dump that air into a basement or an attic or something like that to make up that air. That's base level makeup air. Then you can go on and you can add preheating to that if you want to. Either a Fantech unit or Electro Industries is the one that we're frequently using. So you have to have makeup air. The other one that people often forget is a clothes dryer. Like a regular non-condensing clothes dryer is going to pull somewhere between 200 to 400 CFM of air out of the house. If you have a highly airtight house, the total leakage of that house might be 150 CFM. That means that you're going to be getting a phone call shortly after the clients move in, and they're going to go, we've talked to the appliance company a bunch of times because our clothes dryer isn't working. They said it's not the clothes dryer, it's you guys. And you're going to go, uh-oh, it might be us. And you're going to have to come up with a solution. We learned those ones the hard way. We have to be putting in makeup air. And the reason that I think that 400 CFM thing is BS is because University of Texas just did the home chem program. This was 10 years of indoor air quality research, millions and millions of dollars studying the interactions of chemicals and daily activities inside of the home and what it does to the air. And what they found out is that some of the worst things that we do for indoor air quality is cooking. Anybody got to guess what the worst one is? Number one worst pollutant of indoor air quality. What? Candles. No.
Don't say bacon, you'll break my heart.
It's not bacon. Not bacon. Cooking Brussels sprouts. It's the highest level of pollutants admitted into the airstream of everything that they tested.
Still another reason not to eat
I don't think it matters. But my point is that when we are cooking, we are generating all sorts of chemicals that the chemicals that come off the Brussels sprouts might not actually be bad. But those chemicals that come off of the Brussels sprouts, you smell them, those are VOCs. Those VOCs are going to interact with
the countertop cleaner that you just used, or the hairspray that you just used, or whatever other chemicals are coming out of your furniture in your house, and now they're going to make a byproduct, and then that byproduct's going to bump into something else, and it's going to make a tertiary byproduct. And those tertiary byproducts might be bioaccumulative neurodegenerative toxins that are slowly poisoning you. So my point is, not to get long-winded about this, is if you are cooking in the house, you need to be venting that stuff from cooking outside. And in order to vent the stuff from outside, you have to have makeup air so that you're not negatively pressurizing the house and you're actually sucking the stuff out of the house. Am I using pressure switches or am I using... So I started out using pressure switches, and then Ross said to me, he's like, well, if you use pressure switches on range hoods, they're going to collect grease and they're going to fail over time. I said, okay, so what do, Ross? He says, you buy a rib relay. A rib relay is a ubiquitous industrial relay. They're called rib relays. It's kind of repetitive. It's a relay in a box relay. And you buy these, and what they do is you put them on the circuit that feeds your range hood, and when it turns on, it feeds 24-volt power over to a motorized damper, and it detects the current, and it opens the damper for you.
Sadly, that's all the time we have. What?
I wanted to add one more thing to what Ben said, which Ross also said you should use your range hood when you use your toaster.
Oh my God, we've got one right now. A client called us. She's a very thoughtful client. And she says, okay, so the range hood stuff makes sense to me. She's like, what do we do about the wall oven? And I went, shit.
I don't know.
I don't know. And one of our project managers, because it's a great question. Shit happen all the time. Where is that going? All throughout the house. One of my project managers who's here with us was walking around today. He's like, guess what? I found an oven that has a fan on it. And I'm like, oh my God, these things exist. So
we're doing this again tomorrow, am I right?
Yes. 3:30 tomorrow. 3:30 tomorrow. More BS and Beer Show live.
Bring your questions. That was the most fun, right?
That's
Yeah, it was
the best.
yeah.
And we have Canadians tomorrow.
thank you all.
International guest. It's been a pleasure, all of you. Thank you very much for coming. That makes it way more interesting when you all are there. Thank you for being here.
Well, that wraps up our first podcast from the International Builder Show. Thanks again to the BS and Beer panelists, live audience, and the International Builder Show staff for hosting us at the Construction Performance Zone. We'll be back next week with our second Builder Show podcast. Please remember to send us your comments, questions, and suggestions to FHB Podcast at finehomebuilding.com, and please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find the podcast. Stay safe, everyone. Keep craft alive. Happy building.